particularly interested in how we can leverage Hong Kong as a mediator somehow to cope with the challenges in EU-China higher education cooperation. So this is a brief context of my research. So why Hong Kong? This is not only because of my current work position in Hong Kong. There are also some historical experience because Hong Kong in the 1950s and even um, until China opening up in the late 1970s. So Hong Kong play a very important role in connecting, especially the Western countries and China, because for a couple of decades, China was quite closed. So Hong Kong play very important role for trade, but also for idea exchange, information exchange. So China, of course, at that time, Hong Kong was under the British rules, but Hong Kong was a mediator. So now Hong Kong is part of China as a special administrative region, but still there is a so-called one country, two systems. So Hong Kong still have very important, very unique positions, hopefully can continuously play the mediator role in the current challenges in EU-China higher education collaboration. So what are the challenges? So this is not going to be the focus of my talk today, but I had the opportunity to work with wonderful scholars in the field to you can see on the screen. So we published a special issue for the Journal of Studies in International Education.
Minimize this.
Okay, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. So because the how to say the video bar or somehow block this partially the slides. So okay, it's okay. We can manage.
Yeah, you can do this blindfold.
Uh, yeah, so we published a special issue on rethinking EU-China higher education cooperation under the geopolitical challenges, and also one report for CKN. CKN is the organization in the Netherlands on the changing perspectives, mainly in China, towards the collaboration with the European higher education. So if you are interested in the challenges, you can refer to these studies. But I try to summarize the major. Sorry, there is another issue. I'm turning the page. Okay. So in short, the major challenges in EU-China higher education cooperation are as follows. So the geopolitical tensions make cooperation harder. So this is basically the general statement. So everything is within the geopolitical tensions. They are also in the field of higher education. So there's worries about keeping academic freedom, integrity in joint collaborations. And also, there's also fears about the intellectual property right. There are also misunderstanding. There's a lot of misunderstanding. I think I can show there is a University World News article. So in this article, I talk about the misperceptions. So even though there are some challenges, but still there are some misperceptions or misunderstandings. So all these challenges harm the trust. So this is very fundamental. So without trust, we can hardly continue the collaboration. So this is challenges. But now we come to the role of Hong Kong. So again, I wrote a small article for the University World News. Here I had some assumptions about what role Hong Kong can play for mitigating the challenges in the field. Of course, this is a really preliminary conceptual piece. mainly based on my personal experience and observations. So to further enhance the study, together with my colleagues, Professor John Lee and Dr. Serena Ruo-Yiqiu, we are working on empirical research. Particularly, we are interviewing European researchers at this moment who had experience in collaborating with partners in both mainland China and Hong Kong. This moment, we only conducted 5 pilot interviews. So you can see this is just the beginning. So we are going to expand the interview scope. So today's talk is mainly based on the findings from the 5 pilot interviews. So to better structure the analysis and the presentation, so we have formulated an analytical framework. We call it 4 pillars, 4 pillars of team. Team, you can see, represent trust, equivalence, access, and mediation. So these pillars address the different problems or issues. So trust addressed the relational legitimacy problem. The question is how partners rely on each other. The second, equivalence, addressed the procedural feasibility problems. So can collaborators meet both side compliance requirement? I found a way to minimize it, to put it down. Yeah. So access addressed the practical pathway problems. Are there institutional and infrastructure routes for cooperation? So finally, is mediation. So this is much closer related to the topic about the Hong Kong's role as a mediator. So mediation addresses the integration problems, translation, brokerage, and convening combine. Basically, mediation is about how to integrate also the trust, equivalence, access into sustainable practice in the cooperation. So I will further elaborate how the teams or the 4 pillars works. Too fast. Okay, so trust. So trust is about credible commitments. So credible commitments are promises or actions that the partners trust will be kept even when things get difficult. So this is very important. So we are in the difficult situation between China and Finland. So trust is very important. So I see some audience, sitting here, still collaborate with China, maintain the cooperation is mainly because of trust. We found Hong Kong's strong academic foundations, including the world-class universities, international faculties, and also some familiar government models to Europeans can reduce the perceived risk for European partners. So therefore, still, encouraging great engagement and also facilitate the trust. We also found some evidence. As you can see, the ITN it means interview. So we always anonymize, the interviewee. So we use the ITN and the number. So having international staff makes it much easier to establishing trust and get things done. So there are, as you know, in Hong Kong, at least in my university, we still have many international staff members, also from the Western countries, from Europe. So it's easier for European scholars to work with also the European scholars in Hong Kong. However, there are some challenges too, because there are some concerns about the autonomy of Hong Kong, or autonomy of Hong Kong higher education, and also the academic freedom. So there are also some news around the Western media. So that's also caused some concerns. So we also found, the echoes from the interviewees. So the doubtful future in geopolitics, because there are also a lot of uncertainties in the larger political environment. So that may cause some potential risks in trust building. The second pillar is equivalence, or is mainly about how the standards between both sides are equivalent or comply. We call it compliance equivalence. So this is referred to pragmatic alignment between the two parties regarding the regulations and the normative frameworks. So it's not about identical, but it's mainly about how the two systems are compatible with each other. So this is mainly about the standard alignments, whether we are following the same regulations, same administrative procedure, same academic norms, for example. So Hong Kong's adherence to international academic standards, including ethics, quality assurance, academic freedom, combined with its strong connections to mainland Chinese research network, positions it as a unique compliance equivalence bridge. We also have the interviewee saying, at Hong Kong universities, you have the feeling that you are in a British university, making the communication much easier. So basically, Hong Kong's education system still having the heritage of the British system, but also there are some challenges. So European confidence in Hong Kong alignment with international standards will weaken if clear guarantees regarding academic freedom and freedom to publish are not visibly codified and upheld. So this is also related to the current, concerns, like I mentioned, in the early stage, Europeans may vary, how the freedom to speak, publish may continue in the future. So this is somehow a concern indeed, but also require Hong Kong to make this much visible, at least, to convince the Europeans this should not be a big worry in collaboration. So given the time limit, so I might not, repeat all at least I do not need to read all the quotations, so you can easily grasp the ideas. So the third pillar is about pathways and incentives. So the institutional pathways, so these are the institutional channels and infrastructures. If we collaborate, we do need the channels and the infrastructures. So for this, Hong Kong's capacity to potentially connect EU programs. So Hong Kong actually, the Hong Kong government has co-funding mechanisms with Horizon Europe, and also Hong Kong has also other collaborations with the individual European countries, like the co-funding mechanism with Germany and the French funding agencies. So Hong Kong's capacity to potentially connect to the EU project, also with Chinese database and networks, significantly expands the breadth of the feasibility of collaboration. And some interviewees also recognize, so in Hong Kong, so for example, having access to Chinese publications is not an issue. With scholars in Europe, sometimes it's very difficult to access, especially you want to do research on Chinese society, having the Chinese reference is also very important. So Hong Kong has the network, has the resources. But the challenge is also is about limiting partnership. Mainly, in Hong Kong, basically, the tradition of Hong Kong universities is to collaborate with top universities, so-called. Those are highly ranked universities. Most of universities are in the United States, United Kingdom. Most of European universities are not very visible in ranking. So that might be the potential risk if Hong Kong universities mainly work with the highly ranked universities, so that may limit their partnership with European institutions. And also, since traditionally, Hong Kong mainly collaborate with the UK, US, maybe Australia, they had so far, they have had a limited experience in collaborating with the Europeans. So this is also some challenges. So Hong Kong need to learn more about the ways of collaborating with the European institutions. So finally, about mediation. So how basically Hong Kong can bring all the three other three pillars together and can do the translation. Translation is not about language translation, is about interpreting rules, expectation, and constraints from one system to another. For instance, I mentioned there are some misunderstandings or misperceptions between the European and the Chinese universities and stakeholders. So sometimes Hong Kong may play a translation role in helping Chinese partners better understand European concerns. Um, and also, Hong Kong institutions can also help provide social guarantees that reduce risks because Hong Kong has similar academic norms and systems. And also, Hong Kong institutions could also facilitate the dialogues from both parties due to their network and the connections. So you can quickly get some quotations here. As one interviewee said, so Western researchers should be taught that Hong Kong is not mainland China, that you can communicate in a different way in Hong Kong. So many Europeans or European, maybe I should do more research, but my general feeling is most European universities or actors in higher education, they have very limited knowledge about Hong Kong. So they do not see clear picture. What is Hong Kong? What is mainland China? So this is why the interviewee said, so Western researchers should learn more about Hong Kong. So Hong Kong has some unique features. So when bring these pillars together, we can have a proposition. So mediation is most effective when the pillars of trust, equivalence, and access are strong and work in concert. So they must work together. A weakness in any single pillar will significantly impact the entire process. So in order to maintain the mediation role of Hong Kong, so the three pillars need to be equally strong. We should maintain the pillars, make sure each pillar is functioning and avoid the risks or the challenges we have identified. So for example, one interviewee said, so we needed to have some communication or gathering opportunities. So conferences are very important to build the foundation. Also means the people to people exchange are very important to sustain the pillars. So conclusions, Hong Kong as a resilient intermediaries for the EU-China higher education cooperation. So this is basically our fundamental question. So how can Hong Kong play a role as a mediator and be resilient in EU-China cooperation under the changing geopolitics? So the conclusion is possible, but conditional. So there is a potential, but conditional means that there are some constraints. So if we can mitigate all the challenges, risk, then the potential can be realized. In order to keep or to somehow to mitigate the challenges and even to convert the challenges to opportunities, we need to do some very substantial work. For example, to institutionalize the trust. So trust is very important. We need to maintain it and to institutionalize it to protect the trust. And also the equivalence, all the standard alignments. So we understand the standard, we have shared academic norms, but this should be more visible and codified and make it, much convincing to the Western partners. Thirdly, access paths, basically all the infrastructures and also the ways how institutions can be connected should not be purely based on the ranking systems. So Europeans should, the Hong Kong should have different approaches when establishing collaboration with European partners. Finally, mediation must be actively resourced. So the mediation role is important, but also need to be supported with funding. That's very important, but also with the individuals' commitments. So this is shortly about the conclusion of the research. But finally, I also want to highlight, as you know, this is a GRIFE seminar series. So we have the Global Research Institute for Finnish Education. So this center is also an example of what I'm talking about. The center is a small bridge between Finland, Europe, and mainland China. So we are also doing the works in practice, not only conducting the research. I also want to emphasize to build sustainable international of higher education and resilient international higher education collaboration require multi-stakeholder collaboration. We call it helical innovation approaches. So that's emphasize collaboration and interactions between different sectors like university, industry, government. So it's called the triple helix. Some of you know that I'm also doing research on triple helix. So triple helix model is also very important for understanding the internationalization of higher education. So internationalization of higher education is not simply about student staff exchange, developing joint teaching education project. It's also about how education can do for the society, how internationalization of higher education can be more responsible for the society, especially in the current, landscape. The starting point we come to this research is about because the world is changing, the landscape of politics, economics have changed, which have fundamental influences on internationalization in higher education. So as people working in the field of higher education, we also should think how we can do for the society. To foster sustainable internationalization and collaborative innovation, So in my university, Education University of Hong Kong, we have just launched a new master degree program in comparative education and collaborative innovation. So this program will be taught in Mandarin Chinese. So this is basically our uh, preliminary effort to address the challenges, to address the issues I mentioned in practice. We established the Global Research Institute for Finnish education, for building the bridge, but also we are developing a master degree program for cultivating the talent to train students at the potential of future expert in the field to build resilient international collaboration. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cai. Professor Cai. Professor Dr. Cai. So very insightful presentations, and I think there's a lot of things we can have the continued discussion here. But I would now invite Dr. Lam to share her views on the presentation we just heard. Maybe we have 5 minutes or maximum 10 minutes at the end for common discussion, but let's see how this goes. Okay, Dr. Lam?
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me to join this discussion. I find it very interesting to about this project that you just mentioned, and I have to say that with the conclusions, I agree to a large extent the 4 points that you raised, and it's true that Hong Kong has been a cultural interpreter between the East and West, not just between Hong Kong and the Western world, but also other Asian countries, because if you look into the history of mobility from the late 19th century, Hong Kong played a really, really significant role in bridging cultures and trade. Well, Hong Kong was also the outcome of a trade conflict. So it played a role later on then as a bridge to solve these differences. And it's been going on for like centuries, not just a few decades. So I would say that Hong Kong has this heritage and the competence to do that. But I also agree with Professor Cai that in terms of competence, Hong Kong is actually very much limited to the Anglophone world for historical reasons. So when it comes to continental Europe, which is quite a different world, because if you've lived in Europe, you know that Europe is not one big piece of continent with homogeneous culture and systems. There are like at least 27 systems, 23 languages. So I'm a bit skeptical, even though I'm originally from Hong Kong. I'm a bit more skeptical about Hong Kong's competence in bridging China and continental Europe, because I think Shanghai could probably play a better role, for example, for bridging China and Germany. So this is a weakness that Hong Kong has to strengthen, or has to diversify its links, not just by collaborating with elite universities, but having a more inclusive way, or diversified pathways of collaboration with continental Europe. And it's true that Hong Kong has started some matching fund schemes with the EU, but at the same time, it's very much focused on priority areas like climate change. And for example, if Hong Kong wants to play a bigger role in bridging China or the Asian countries with continental Europe, then it has to expand this scope of collaboration. Either the Hong Kong government has to put in more money to say we have new priorities, we want to support more higher education collaboration or research together. So it should not just be relying on EU funding and EU priorities that Hong Kong government has to put in money to. Like, these are important. We want to strengthen trust, and we want to play this role as a mediator. Then you have to prepare the ground for it. And I also agree that Hong Kong has good potential to play this role, because having been living in Europe and doing research, academic and policy research in Europe, I realized that Hong Kong is really a great place to do China research, because of the infrastructure and the resources, the libraries there. I can never imagine having so many connected libraries in Europe. Like you can do some, you have some online repositories and databases, but you can never get them like full text. In Hong Kong, you get there, you have like 21 higher education institutions, all the UGC libraries are linked. So you can go from one library to another. You can have so much more resources on the site. And this is a value also for European universities to consider, like being on site, get to know people and get to talk to people, because it's a very sophisticated city. So it's this is a strength for example, if Hong Kong wants to convince the EU to work more on a wider scope, this is something it could present itself. And conditions, I have to say, after post protest in 2019, Hong Kong is situated in a different position geopolitically. So it's not just the institution, how you build trust, but the whole system of Hong Kong, rule of law, freedom of press, is a whole package that Hong Kong has to work on. And of course, with Triple Helix, it's very good to have government involved in higher education and research, but there's also the skeptical prospect that how Hong Kong government deals with higher education institutions, whether there's still institutional freedom, where there's freedom of speech. So during the British time, so we're not so much concerned. Even after 1997 and before 2019, the concern wasn't so much because Hong Kong has the British legacy. Like the trust is based on British legacy. Like we know that Hong Kong is practicing somehow like British system. But after 2019, I have to say this trust has somehow collapsed. So now we have to do all the last 4 points that Professor Cai presented, that you have to work hard to institutionalize trust, to make sure that media are transparent, so that you have to rebuild it from the start, basically, to prove yourself that you are still trustworthy, even though it's no longer in not totally like the British system. So it's some hard work to do to institutionalize trust again. And that's not what universities alone can do. It has to, the whole society, whole ecosystem has to not just codify it and visualize it, but to act on it. Like how the court deals with court cases, can people see that is the due processes are followed, and whether the judgments make sense. So it's not just the universities, but of course universities in Hong Kong have a good position to contribute to this. But and on the other hand, I have to say that Hong Kong universities are very autonomous. It's much more autonomous than universities in some European countries. They act on their own interests. They compete with each other. So you can present the government policy saying that we want the Hong Kong universities to go in this direction, but the government at the same time has to leave its hands off. And it has to be the universities themselves to decide that, okay, this is great, this is an opportunity we want to tap into. And the universities have to do it themselves. It has to be bottom up. Otherwise, it will just it would actually hurt the trust building process that we are trying to do. Like it shouldn't be top down. It has to be the money can come, but then it has to be the universities that accept it. So it has to be it's a bit tricky in Hong Kong. So if you want universities to contribute to trust building, you have to let them realize that it's their role to play. And you can suggest it, but you cannot make them do it. So steering from a distance, as what we often say in public policy research, like the recommendations, like give me the money, but leave me alone and trust that I can do it. So that would be the best scenario that we can imagine. And I hope Hong Kong government, or I don't know, EU officials, if they happen to watch this video, would realize that what Hong Kong can contribute and how Hong Kong can contribute in the best way possible. Yeah, so that's my comment, and I think my comments somehow align with Professor Dr. Cai's as well.
Thank you so much for your very straightforward and I would say clear comments to Professor Chai's presentations. I fully agree, at least for my part, for everything what you said. And you raised the two perspectives, both the individual level, institutional level, and also the governmental level. And this all needs to come together so that we can make this work. But Professor Chai, would you like to have a comment at this stage for Dr.
Okay, I
Lam?
think we have already shared ideas, so I would prefer open the floor
All right.
to audience.
Yes.
We have online participant, also people sitting in the room.
Yes. So please join me
Yeah,
here at the end of the
okay.
table.
Yes.
So if there are any questions, you might respond directly. So now the floor is open for questions, both on-site and online. So if you are online, please raise your hand and we give the microphone to you, so to speak.
Okay.
Okay, there's one question here. Please say who
Maybe you
you
can
are.
be
Yeah.
here, also.
Yes. Well, yeah, I'm. Thank you. Such a great company here. Yeah. Hello, I'm Karol Leja. I'm a researcher here with the Higher Education Group in Tampere. Thank you very much for the presentation, for the comments. I find the team analytical framework really interesting and really like with a great practical, I think, potential. So thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, Professor Lam's comments were, I think, very to the point. And it actually made me think about something that when I heard about this event. So when I think about Hong Kong as a mediator, I think about it first, I guess, in the economic terms. So in the second part of 20th century, Hong Kong was this kind of connection point between China and the rest of the world in many ways. I feel like after the change of the authorities over the Hong Kong, this has been somehow decreased, right? So the hubs in the mainland China took over a lot of the economic activities that used to happen in Hong Kong. Now, that makes me think also about the situation in terms of higher education and how Hong Kong can be a mediator in this setting. Because I feel like we discussed a lot about the Hong Kong perspective, some about the European perspective or Western perspective. I wonder if you have any comments on the mainland China perspective towards that. So we know that the Chinese university excellence programs are not including the Hong Kong universities, for example. And sort of my thought or my question is whether the mainland China, whether the Beijing government is actually invested in making Hong Kong the mediator, or whether the policy is somehow different. So I'm very curious on your opinion on that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Karol.
Thank you.
Professor Tsai.
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you so much. And also, I want to mention, Carol used to work in Hong Kong at the CTU, Hong Kong. So he's European. He worked in Hong Kong, and also he had a study visit also to Beijing Normal University. So also he knows the dynamics in the field. I think he raised a very important issue that since China, especially the mainland Chinese universities, are facing challenges in collaborating with the European partners. So if Hong Kong could have a mediator role, so how this could be supported. I think this basically basically the awareness, we want to somehow raise through our research and also the current talk. So of course, Hong Kong is still, in a way, it's a special administrative region, as Kunni already mentioned. So university had autonomy. So on the other hand, the government also has its own autonomy in developing its agenda. So I'm not sure how there could be a very direct link. So Chinese government directly interfere or influence or support Hong Kong higher education of the system. It's called one country. I think I'm not, I'm also new to Hong Kong. My understanding mechanism, I'm not sure how it may. I think it's more important Hong Kong government realize the role because Hong Kong has also ambitious goal of developing Hong Kong as an international education hub. So this mediator role could be very important dimension of the international hub. So if Hong Kong government is serious about this potential, then certain investment might be needed. So I want to give the floor to Kunni. So Kunni knows much better because you are from Hong Kong. You know much more about Hong Kong than me.
Yeah, I also left Hong Kong for more than a decade, so I'm updating my knowledge of this city. I have to say I had similar observations like when I started working in Brussels 15 years ago. I realized that the collaboration between mainland Chinese universities and the EU were much direct and closer. So when the university presidents from mainland China visited Brussels for this EU China higher level dialogue, there were only mainland Chinese presidents. And there were no Hong Kong presidents, university presidents. So I found that there was a missing link there, but at the same time, I understood why they did it because it's just to avoid this perception or misperception, what you say that mainland China is interfering Hong Kong's higher education system because according to Hong Kong's basic law, China can only directly involve Hong Kong in foreign affairs and defense. So these are the two competencies that Chinese authorities can take over Hong Kong's role, and all the others Hong Kong government has to figure out themselves. So not even the Education Bureau should directly direct Hong Kong universities, but it was done through UGC and RGC. So there's some kind of distance between universities and the government. And I think this is the background that we should understand. And when we understand this, then it's not China's fault not to involve Hong Kong universities in its world-class university building campaign. And I think this should still be maintained. But at the same time, this time in Hong Kong, I visited Hong Kong just last month, and I realized that a lot of Hong Kong universities actually have set up their branch campuses in mainland China. So this line, the two systems are also the border between the two higher education system is also blurring, and that's not just between Hong Kong and mainland China; it's all around the world. And so, how Hong Kong and mainland China should work together, and at the same time, Hong Kong's distinctive advantage is a tricky issue because China is still a party state, as we know, and that's also where the distrust is. So Hong Kong universities have the advantage of Hong Kong universities that it's possible to present and understand different perspectives, different ideological perspectives. So I don't know, like I've not worked very much directly with mainland universities, but the conception, the idea is that mainland universities must teach students within certain ideological frames. Like students must undertake compulsory courses in Marxism communism or Marxism with Chinese characteristics. I have nothing against Marxism. I live in the birthplace of Karl Marx. So Marxism is a good thing, idealistic utopia concept of how society should be organized is a good thing. It was just not implemented properly in many different countries. And so there's even between Hong Kong universities and mainland universities or parents from both sides of the border, they have doubts about whether higher education should function under one ideological framework. And Hong Kong at the moment is still quite open to different ideological frameworks or different economic systems. And this is the openness of Hong Kong, and this is where the mediator role can take effect when Hong Kong people or students, let's not say Hong Kong people, I don't know how to define Hong Kong people, but when people who are living, working in Hong Kong are able to understand things from different perspectives and engage in dialogues from different perspectives without saying that you are not on my side, I don't want to listen to you, that would be the success of Hong Kong's role as a mediator, either in the university or not just economic sense, but also legal sense. Because Hong Kong practices common laws like maritime law, common law, trade, very flexible kind of law. And then mainland China somehow inherited or copied German law indirectly from Japan. So two different legal systems, governing two different sets of two different university systems. So this is important. I think even within EU, Britain and continental Europe cannot understand each other very well, also because of different legal systems. And Hong Kong and China, or Hong Kong and Shenzhen, Guangzhou also have this problem. So there's some common ground here between these two places on different corners of the world that could also be a scope of comparison or research. So I think there's a lot of common ground that you can further develop in how to develop Hong Kong's role as a mediator, not just between mainland China and Europe, but also between different legal systems and how Hong Kong and mainland China overcome these differences in legal systems and philosophies behind all these things. It's a big project that you can develop further. Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit long.
We would have a question from the online audience.
Jin.
Jin, so please.
Thank you so much. I'm very interested in this project between Tampere University and Hong Kong University of Education in particular, and in bigger, it means just between EU and China. But I very highly appreciate the brief presentation of Professor Cai on the 4 pillars, and especially the first pillar about the trust, about the academic freedom and institutional autonomy at the university more in general. But my question is that, and how you can solve the problem if Finland or Europe and China or Hong Kong, you have quite different, because as I know that in China, you don't have, according to the Chinese higher education law in 2019, in all university in China, mainland, I don't know how about in Hong Kong, there is not the governance board at the university. The leadership in the university is only emphasis on the political leadership. In the university in China is focused on the Communist Party character. The same in Vietnam now. during last 15 years, we try to set up something like the policy on the establish the governing council in the university. But now, from this month in Vietnam, try to cancel the governance board in the public university. That's why I think just this project, as Professor Cai presentation, we are interested so much how the influence between the Europe and China mainland, or between the Tampere and the Hong Kong University of Education, to solve this the difficulty, the challenge at the first pillar about the trust. How to improve more and more the democracy voice, the voice of students, of on all other the stakeholder in university, like in Western. But at the same time, we maintain the political system in the Asia, in the China. It is very interesting and very difficult. And I think that this project between the Tampere University and Hong Kong University can solve this problem. Maybe not full issue, but some level of the democracy for the all the stakeholder at the university, and we can learn. We from Vietnam can learn something, because we all of us are very worried about that. Because if the modern of the governing boards is cancelled in the public university, very difficult to improve the institutional democracy, at the same time academic freedom in the university in China, in Vietnam, in particular. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Professor Cai, would you like to?
Well, thank you.
Sorry, one more issue. If the institutional autonomy and very limited by canceling the governing board at university, how to develop the triple helix? It means that relationship between the university and enterprise and government. It is one. I think just Professor Kai can help some small some answer during this project, but not now, because I know that Professor Kai is the very excellent expert on triple helix issue. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. So I really appreciate your participating in your event. So you have always, be with us. So your former Sino-Finnish education, dialogues with the Jinto Jolly, and also Triple Helix event, and here, I think I do not need to respond too much because you have already highlighted the most essential things about trust building, academic freedom, especially institutional autonomy issues, but there's a long way, to working on that. So you also somehow also referring to the Vietnamese experience. So I'm very interested in future collaboration with you. So now we are closer. Now I'm in Hong Kong. I want to also given the time, so we have reserved 1 hour time for everybody, and so I would appreciate if Kunni, if you have anything to comment or respond to Tin.
I think institutionalizing, setting up procedures, institutions to safeguard trust has been working in Hong Kong for so many years since the universities were set up. So if Hong Kong doesn't backpedal into turning things into like 人治, like personalized rule, that would already set a good example for other countries. So the this time when I went back to Hong Kong, I actually see some hope because I see there's still people who are doing what they used to do. They still believe in institutions. Of course, some people were totally disillusioned by what happened after 2019, but people are still holding on their position, and they try to follow the procedures before, even though the procedures may not be the same anymore. And I hope that those procedures will be reestablished. So trust building is not just about branding, putting nice logo and packages. Like the due procedures have to be visible and seen, and the quality has to be upheld. It's basically like trust is about what is trust? Maybe we need to define it a little bit. Like, uh, is is it about the expectation that people can expect something built based on trust? They can expect the same quality, or they can expect the same. Like, they can predict things. That's trust. And I think a lot of time we put emphasis on branding, and branding in the I research branding and I'm a critical research of branding, which is not just about creating a nice logo, packaging things nicely and hope that people will trust it. Behind the brand is the promise, the brand promise that upon seeing this logo, you can expect something good. Like, you don't need to search around the world to look for to compare qualities and things. But you see, this is a brand, a Hong Kong brand, and behind Hong Kong brand, we can expect that things will be done properly with high quality, predictable, and with good value. You know, universities can the value of universities um it's becoming a question or a topic of discussion both in Europe and Hong Kong. This can be something you do as well, like philosophy of university and the values, like what universities should do. Is it just about employability, or is it about social impact, or is it about training people for the government? But if it's for the government, like, in what relationship should you work with the government? For example, public policy. A lot of universities are doing public policy research in Hong Kong, but how can they preserve the institutional autonomy and academic freedom to say that we have done this research and we have this scientific conclusions? We want to be direct and tell you the recommendations. These are the recommendations. Or do they start to self-censor and try to hide their recommendations? Or I mean, it's nice to not use violent languages. Like, language should be rational and communicative, not to overpower other people. But at the same time, over packaging a recommendation could also make it difficult for people to understand. So universities in Asia or in Hong Kong do have this role of doing public policy research, or making recommendations to the government, and this is already practicing something. But how can we institutionalize the protection of this kind of free speech, that people, upon making recommendations, don't lose their jobs or don't get into jail? And I think universities is a place where you can set some clear rules, say what's spoken within the university is okay. Like, you can debate within the university, present different views, but jobs should not be lost because of some researchers' opinion. And this is what the government has to stand up and say, yes, we defend the border of this institution because it's autonomous. We trust that people working there make sense and make scientific research and recommendations. So you have to leave the space for them. And that concerns the governing board. So, if there is there's a mediator within the institution, a mediator between the researchers and the government, say, okay, like, basically the governing board is the mediator between the researchers and the government, and that should be installed. It's like a fuse. Should I say that it's a fuse? Like, there's something like a protection of those people within the institution, that it should be institutionalized or should be protected. But yeah, I hope what I've said is still true, or yeah.
Okay, thank you for your comment, Dr. Lam. And I think it's time to close the session because we are already 8 minutes over time. But before doing that, I would once more like to thank Professor Cai, Dr. Lam, and for you all participating this fine event. And stay tuned. GRIFE seminar series is going to continue, I guess.
Yes, must.
Yes. So wish you everyone have a good day or evening wherever you are, and let's be
Yes.
in touch one way or another.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the
Thank you.
invitation. Stay in
Thank you.
touch. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.